In 1962, my grandmother Odile Hebert fed 9 people at that table 3 times a day, plus whoever pulled in the yard. She had a stove, an icebox, and a sink. No dishwasher, no microwave, no food processor. She kept a garden, she kept chickens, and she did the wash for the whole house on a Monday. And every afternoon at 2 o'clock, that woman sat down on the back steps with a cup of coffee and did nothing at all for an hour. Today, 2 people with a kitchen full of machines she never dreamed of will tell you they do not have time to cook. Here is the twist. She was not faster than you. On Sunday, she was already working on Thursday's supper, and Thursday did not know it yet. Every one of these 20 is a way that woman took work off her own back, and near enough all of them cost you nothing. If you want the whole of it, putting up a hog, the pantry, the plants that heal, and the ones that hurt, it is in the one book at gushebert.com. Link below and tap subscribe while you are down there because we pull one of these back into the daylight every week. Number 10 is the exact opposite of what everybody in your family told you about a pot of beans. Number 3 is a thing you have done to fix a salty pot that has never once worked. And number 7, which I am not touching until we are most of the way down, means you never have to stand over a roux again as long as you live. 20 down to 1. Number 20. Chop the Trinity in bulk. Not for the pot in front of you, for the month. She would take a Sunday afternoon and do 8 or 10 onions, a bunch of celery, a mess of bell peppers, all at once. 1 knife, 1 board, 1 cleanup. Then it went into bags flat in the freezer. Bell pepper freezes raw with no trouble at all. Onion and celery go a little limp when they thaw, and that does not matter one bit because they are going into a pot to be cooked down anyway. You are not making a salad. Now, a Tuesday gumbo starts with you reaching in the freezer instead of standing at the board, crying over an onion after work. Same 40 minutes of knife work. 1 time instead of 10. That is the chopping done. Next is the one that grows back. Number 19. Green onion bottoms in a jar of water. Cut your green onions and leave about 2 inches of the white with the roots on it. Stand them up in 1 inch of water in a jar on the windowsill, and they come back. Not a little. You will be cutting off the tops of that same jar for weeks, and when they finally give out, you stick the next batch in. She had a jar going on that sill her entire life. You are throwing away the part that regrows and buying it back every week. That is the onions. Next is the bottle on the table. Number 18, the pepper vinegar bottle. A bottle of plain white vinegar with a handful of little hot peppers dropped in it, sitting on the table, and it lived there permanently. It went on greens, on beans, on peas, on anything that needed waking up. And when it got low, she topped it back up with vinegar, and it just kept going, same peppers, for the better part of a year. That bottle cost about $2 one time. And it does the same job as the acid at the end of a long-cooked pot, except it is already on the table and nobody has to think about it. That is the bottle. Next is the loaf you were about to throw out. Number 17. Bring stale bread back. A day-old French loaf that has gone hard is not stale in the sense of ruined. It is stale in the sense of dried out, and you can put the water back. Run the whole loaf under the tap, quick. Get the crust actually wet, and put it in a hot oven for 8 or 10 minutes. It comes out crackling on the outside and soft in the middle, and it is a fresh loaf again for about 2 hours. Do that instead of driving to the store. The bakery has known this forever. That is the bread. Next is the thing in your sink you have been throwing away. Number 16. A bag in the freezer for shells. Shrimp heads and shells, crab bodies, the shells off a crawfish boil, chicken bones, the ends of the celery. It all goes into one bag in the freezer, and it stays there until the bag is full. And then one afternoon, you make a pot of stock out of the whole thing. You are not making stock today. You are collecting it. That is why it never feels like work. And that is the difference between a shrimp étouffée that tastes like shrimp and one that tastes like flour. That is the collecting. Next is what you do with it. Number 15, freeze the stock in cubes. A pot of stock is a gallon of liquid you have nowhere to put. So it goes into ice trays, freezes overnight, and the next morning you knock the cubes into a bag. Now, stock is a thing you take out of the freezer 4 cubes at a time to finish a gravy or loosen a smothered dish, instead of a whole jar you have to commit to. Cube trays run you $2. That is the entire investment. That is the stock handled. Next is the cleanup you have been dreading. Number 14, salt cleans the skillet. A cast iron pan with stuff stuck to it does not want soap, and it does not want a wire brush. It wants a good handful of coarse salt and a folded paper towel or a rag while the pan is still warm. The salt is an abrasive. It scours everything off and it leaves the seasoning alone. Then you wipe it out, put it back on the fire a minute to dry, and rub a little fat in it. That is 30 seconds. That is not a chore. And the reason people say cast iron is a pain is that nobody ever told them this. First pattern break. Everything so far is something you do beside the cooking. From here down, we get into the cooking itself, and that is where the real hours are hiding. Number 13, read the oil without a thermometer. Drop a pinch of flour in. If it sits there and does nothing, the oil is cold. If it sizzles right off and floats, you are ready. If it goes brown the second it lands, you are hot and you need to pull the pot off the fire a minute. You can do the same with the end of a wooden spoon, stick it in and watch the bubbles come off it. Steady little bubbles means go. She never owned a thermometer and she never once served a piece of catfish that was raw in the middle or burned on the outside. That is the temperature. Next is the oil after you are done with it. Number 12, strain the oil and use it again. When it cools, pour it back through a cloth or a coffee filter into a jar and keep that jar in the icebox. Frying oil is good for several rounds, and you are throwing out $3 or $4 every time you dump a pot. When it goes dark, or it foams up on you, or it smells off before anything hits it, that is when it is done. Then it goes out. Here is mine. I was 14 and I fried catfish and left the pot sitting on the stove uncovered and unstrained, and I forgot it. And it sat there the better part of 2 weeks with all the little bits of batter down in the bottom of it. Then I went and fried in it again. Everything came out tasting like something you would find under a boat. My grandfather did not fuss at me. He handed me the jar and made me smell it, and then he made me smell a fresh one back and forth twice. Strain it while it is warm, put a lid on it, put it in the cold. That is the whole rule, and I have not missed it since. That is the oil. Next is what you set the food on. Number 11, drain on a rack, not on a plate of paper towels. Fried food on a flat towel sits in its own steam and the bottom side goes soft before it ever gets to the table. Up on a rack or on a brown paper sack with air under it, and the steam goes down and away and it stays crisp. That is the difference between fried fish at the camp and fried fish that got soggy on the way to the table, and it costs nothing at all. Second pattern break. From here on down, every one of these saves you an actual hour, not a minute. And number 7 is coming. Number 10, salt the soaking water for your beans. Now I know. Every person in your family told you salt makes beans tough and you have to wait until the end. That is backwards, and the food science people settled it a while back. Salt in the soak water actually softens the skins because the sodium works its way into the skin and loosens up what holds it stiff. Beans soaked in salted water cook more evenly and blow out fewer skins. So a good spoonful of salt in the soak overnight, and you have better beans in less time by doing something everybody warned you not to do. That is the beans. Next is how you thicken them. Number 9, cream them against the side of the pot. When the red beans are nearly done and you want that thick gravy, you do not add flour and you do not add cornstarch. You take a big spoon, scoop about a cup of beans up against the side of the pot and mash them flat. Stir it back in. The starch out of those mashed beans thickens the whole pot and it still tastes like beans because it is beans. Takes 10 seconds. That is the beans done. Next is the rice you have been making every single night. Number 8, cook rice ahead and freeze it. Rice freezes better than nearly anything in a Cajun kitchen. Make a big pot, let it cool, portion it into bags flat, freeze it. Reheat it with a splash of water and a lid over it and it comes back like it was made that minute. So the rice, which is the thing you have to start 20 minutes before everything else, is now a thing you take out of the freezer while you are getting the gravy hot. That is 20 minutes off every supper for the rest of your life. That is the rice. Now here it is. Number 7. Number 7. Make your roux in the oven. You do not have to stand there. You never have to stand there again. Flour and oil in a cast iron pot, equal by eye, stirred smooth, and it goes in the oven at 350. You stir it every 20 or 30 minutes, and that is all you do. It takes longer on the clock than doing it on the stove, an hour and a half or two to get it dark. But it is not your time. It is the oven's time, and you are in another room doing something else. And here's the part that matters more than the convenience. An oven roux is nearly impossible to burn because the heat is coming at it from every side even and slow instead of blasting the bottom of the pan. A stove roux burns because one spot on the bottom gets ahead of the rest. In the oven, there is no such spot. It goes dark, it goes even, and it does not scorch on you while you turn around to answer the phone. Every restaurant kitchen in South Louisiana that makes roux in any quantity makes it this way. It is not a shortcut, and it is not cheating. It is the same roux. That is the roux without the standing. Next is the roux you do not have to make at all. Number 6, roux keeps. Make a whole lot at once. Take that pot out of the oven, get it dark, let it cool, and put it in jars in the ice box, and it will hold for months. Now, the thing that used to be the reason you did not make a gumbo on a weeknight is a spoonful out of a jar. 2, 3 cups of roux in the cold, and you have got gumbo on the table in the time it takes to boil the rice, which you already froze at number 8. That is the jar. Next is a roux with no oil in it whatsoever. Number 5, dry roux. This one surprises people. You can brown flour in a dry skillet or on a sheet in the oven with no fat in it at all, stirring or shaking it until it goes the color of coffee with milk in it and smells like toasted pecan. Then it keeps in a jar in the cupboard for as long as you like. When you want it, you whisk a little into cold stock and stir it into your pot. It thickens and it brings the toasted flavor, and there is not one drop of oil in it. Down here, it was the way to make a gumbo when the lard was needed elsewhere. And now people use it because it is lighter. It is not a diet trick. It is an old way to get the same taste when the fat was not there to spare. Third pattern break, 4 left, and these last 4 are the ones that fix things after they have already gone wrong. Number 4. Lift the fat off a hot pot. Everybody knows the fat cap is easy to take off cold the next morning. But it is 6 o'clock and everybody is hungry, and tomorrow does not help you. So you take a couple of ice cubes in a ladle or a cube wrapped in a bit of cloth and you skim it across the top. The fat hits the cold and firms up and grabs onto it, and you lift it right out. Do it 2 or 3 times. A folded paper towel laid flat on the surface and pulled off does the same thing on a smaller scale. That is a greasy pot fixed in a minute at the stove. That is the grease. Next is the mistake everybody makes. Number 3, oversalted and the potato does not work. You have done it. Everybody has done it. Salty pot, so you cut a potato and drop it in and let it ride. And everybody says the potato pulls out the salt. It does not. That potato takes up salty liquid, same salty concentration as everything else in there. And when you pull it out, you have taken out a little bit of salty water and left the rest exactly as salty as it was. All you did was cook a potato. Here is what actually works. Add more of everything else. Unsalted stock or water or more of the beans or the rice or the vegetables, so the same salt has more to spread through. A little acid, vinegar, or lemon makes the tongue read the salt as less. A little fat, a spoon of butter does the same thing. And the simplest fix in a Cajun kitchen is that it is going over rice anyway, so put more rice under it. She did that one about every other month, and nobody ever knew. That is the salt fixed. Next is the jar that ends the shopping. Number 2, mix your own seasoning by the quart. Salt, black pepper, cayenne, garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, and a little dried thyme if you like. Mix it by ratio in whatever amount you want and keep it in a jar with a wide mouth so a spoon fits. Now, here is why this is different from the shaker off the shelf, and I will say a fair word about that shaker because Tony Chachere was a Cajun out of Opelousas who did this state a service in 1972. But one blend seasons every single thing in your kitchen the same way, and it is mostly salt, which means when you want more heat, you also get more salt, whether you wanted it or not. Yours is not. You can run one heavy on cayenne for the boil and one light on salt for the everyday. And you can add the heat and the salt separately when you need to. It costs about a third of what the jars cost, and it is the same ingredients, which brings us to number one. Number one is not a trick, friend, and it is the reason that woman was on the back steps at 2 o'clock with a cup of coffee. She was never cooking one meal, not one time in her life. She was always cooking a week. Look back down the list. The Trinity chopped for the month, the shells collected in a bag until there are enough, the stock frozen in cubes, the rice made ahead, the roux in a jar, the beans soaked the night before, the oil strained back into the jar for next time, the seasoning mixed by the quart. Every one of the 19 things I just gave you is the same move. Do the job one time at the hour that suits you for the 10 times you're going to need it. The modern kitchen is built backwards from that. You come home at 6 with nothing done, and you start from zero, and you do the whole thing again the next night, from zero, and again the night after that. And that is exhausting. And it is exhausting for a reason. You are doing the same 12 jobs every single evening that she did once on a Sunday. And that is what got sold to you. When Swanson put the first frozen dinner in the case in 1953, the pitch was not that the food was better, because everybody knew it was not. The pitch was time, and it worked, because by then the planning was already gone and people really were starting from zero every night and really were tired. The industry did not steal the hour from you. It found you without one and sold you a way to get through the evening. Then it sold you the roux in the jar, the stock in the cube, the gravy in the packet, and the seasoning in the shaker. Every one of those is a job on this list, taken out of a woman's hands, put in a container with a price on it, and sold back. That is not a conspiracy, neighbor. That is just what selling looks like when somebody stops doing something for themselves. She had the hour because she took it on Sunday. That is the whole secret. There is not another one. Now, do not go try all 20. That is how people quit. Pick one. This week, chop a whole sack of onions and the celery and the peppers on a Sunday afternoon and put them in the freezer flat in bags. That is 40 minutes one time, and it will change the way every weeknight supper goes for a month, and you will feel it Tuesday. And if you want the rest of it, putting up a hog, the pantry, curing, canning, the plants that heal, and the ones that hurt, it is all in the one book at gushebert.com. I will tell you mine since I am asking for yours. The oven roux took me until I was near 40. I stood over a stove stirring for 20-some years because that is how I was shown, and it never once occurred to me to ask if there was another way. My wife's aunt out of Breaux Bridge told me, and I did not believe her, and I made one that night out of spite, and it was better than mine. Tell me down below. What is the one your people did that saved them an hour, and does anybody in your family still do it? Name it. The one that gets the most replies is the one I go deep on next. If any one of these 20 is going to save you time this week, hit the like on it. That is how it gets in front of the next person. And subscribe if you want the next one. We do this every week. Next time out, there is a cut of meat off a hog that every butcher in this state used to hand across the counter for free. And by 1980, it was gone off every counter in Louisiana. I will show you what it is, what she did with it, and the year the packers worked out they could sell it back to you at $9 a pound. There is another one up on your screen right now. YouTube put it there. Go on and take it. Keep the old ways, friend. Do not let them go under.